A lot of managers have schedules outside the caretaking and letting agreement. You refer to the agreements as the schedule. That is your Bible.
Well, we've done over 20 transactions, made $40 million in deals. There is a contractual schedule, and that's what you must rely on.
When you were explaining the way your business works, it was the people that you're servicing first.
We aren't a short-term operator. It's what we do as permanent space. People live there. That's where their families are. Their children grow up. In this sort of business, you can't ever forget you're managing people's homes.
Have you found that you have changed the perception of some people on body corporates about their expectations? They thought that they call you 24/7.
People need to understand the interactions between an operator and a committee is not about everyone being best mates. It's about us delivering a service to a body corporate that we are paid to do.
Welcome to RB Radio. I'm Frank.
And I'm Trudy. Join us as we explore the very exciting world of the accommodation industry.
We're going to walk you through the ever-evolving landscape of hotels, motels, caravan parks and management rights, but more importantly, the communities and the stories that underpin them all.
From market trends and expert predictions to the personal success stories and many lessons learned, we're going to cover it all.
Join us and let's embark on this journey through the weird and wonderful world of the accommodation industry together. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Resort Brokers Radio. I'm here once again, and as always, with my fabulous co-host, Trudy Crooks, Managing Director of Resort Brokers. Trudy, we're here back in our wonderful set. How are you feeling?
Fantastic. I finally feel like the set is equal to the quality of what's been said in the set. So no, it's going very well. I'm very excited for today's guest.
Excited for today. Well, He was so good a couple of episodes ago. We brought him back. Tim Crooks, Director of New Developments for Resort Brokers. Welcome back, Tim.
Thank you for having me back. I'm delighted.
Excellent.
I love the new
That wasn't who I
space.
meant.
Oh, that's not who you meant. Right, okay. Well, to introduce our
Who do
very
you mean?
special
Who do you
guest
mean?
of the day, we're very, very pleased and thankful for his time. Brendan Tutt, Managing Director of the Tessa Group. Thanks for joining us today on Resort Brokers Radio.
Thank you very much, Frank, Tim and Trudy. Great to be here on Resort Brokers Radio. It's fantastic, so thank you very much.
Good news. Thank you very much for your time, mate. We appreciate you giving it up.
No, thank you.
I'm not going to talk too much today, which is going to be very difficult for me. Trudy, I think we should both take a leaf out of our own book and leave the conversation between Brendan and Tim to talk about how their relationship started in business, in management rights, and there's the friendship and professional development that has happened over the last 10 years of doing business. Is that about right, Tim?
Yeah, well, we've known each other for over 15 years. Yep. But yes, we've been lucky enough to be working together in the last 10, and through that process, we've gone from clients to friends.
I think so. I think just as we get older, you start doing business together with people. But Tim has been a pretty important part of our business. But now I consider Tim and Trudy, the whole Crooks family, which I've grown to know quite well, good friends. So it's amazing how that develops over time.
What sort of size, when you're talking about businesses that you guys have done together, can you give us a bit of an outline as to what kind of business you've done together and what's kind of the magnitude of it?
So over the last 10 years, we have been lucky enough to do $40 million worth of transactions, $40 million of transactions over 20 deals in the last 10 years, ranging from as small as 400K to as big as 10 million in the second year.
10 million.
Yeah, I think my highlight was the 400 grand sale, Tim, but I'm pretty sure you're...
It's not about the money, is it?
I did notice you got a bit more excited about the $10 million one. But,
I was slightly more motivated.
I did note that. If I cast my mind back, I did note that you're a bit more excited about that one.
Yeah.
But,
we don't discriminate against any size of deal, but obviously that was a very noteworthy transaction early in my career, Central Village.
So before you two tell us your hilarious story about when you first met, and I think our audience would probably like to be a fly on the wall for some of your robust discussions and negotiations, which I think a good working relationship always has that. I think it's important to note Brendan is not just one of the biggest private operators of portfolio of management rights, but also a developer. But you actually were an operator before you were Tessa started and you were a developer. Yeah. So interesting.
It is. I think from our group's point of view, we actually did all things at a very similar time. And the management rights business is as equally as important to us as our residential development business and our commercial property development and investment business. And I think diversification in the company has always been a big thing. I think today also, to mention Kurt Swenson, my business partner for a long period of time, I get just a bit of a tingle there when I say that, you know, Kurt and I, who own the group together,
Yes.
best mates for some 25 odd years,
Wow.
but also, you know, in business, you know, we've chalked up now 11 years. So it's a big thing, and this business wouldn't be, it's not just me, it's our staff, but, you know, Kurt's a founder of the business.
We'd like to have had Kurt here today, but the table just starts getting
Exactly
smaller
right.
and smaller with all the personalities.
Exactly right. And there's enough loud voices here, I think, already. Especially this side of the table, Frank. I think us three will make up for it, I think.
Working with your best friend, I know, like working with your family, it goes through evolutions, right? And it's an absolute blessing, but
Yes.
you know, it also puts the stress on one of the most important relationships. Have you found that, I imagine, challenging and fabulous in equal measure, or?
I think equal measure, but I think there's also iterations of the relationship that we go through. You know, some 11 years later, it's interesting to look back where we started. And our biggest thing right now is not to repeat the things we did incorrectly many years ago when you're growing. And I think your businesses go through different phases. And we're by no means geniuses at what we do or infallible. We have issues like everyone does, and we manage all the problems and things that we have in our business. But you try and make things, obviously, as great as possible. It is great to be able to go to work with your best mate, and I think that's a pretty big privilege to have.
A privilege, and kind of a unique scenario, because not everyone gets to do that, and Resort Brokers is the same way. You know, you get to do business with the people that you love. It's got its challenges, but some of the wins are really sincere.
Well, Frank, a good question for Tim to answer, but I think we are basically family. Kurt and I and his family, and that is what we are.
Yeah.
And I think you challenge each other more, but having that trust, that level of there's enough challenges in the day-to-day nature, especially in commission sales and a sales business. And I think having that bond and that relationship, you don't have to, it's not another thing to worry about.
And despite any issues that you have, I think there's the underlying, what you're saying, the underlying part that we know we are good at what we do.
Yes.
And there's always compounding issues that are both personal and professional that we all have. Like you guys have a deep personal relationship, which also makes you do things you wouldn't do to other people.
No, it does.
As well.
Yeah.
So
We're going to have Resort Brokers.
you probably get arrested down the street if you did it to other people, and we'll have no staff. So no, it's interesting, but I think Sweno definitely makes me better at what I do and holds me, I think, more accountable as a person, even over being a business person.
So you say your best friend before business partners. How did you guys meet?
Mate, when I finished school, I was a Ray White leasing cadet, which wasn't quite the bottom of the office, but you could definitely see the bottom from there. And we started as mates out of school, just at the end of school, out of school. And I worked on the Saturdays putting up the rental signs and doing my leasing inspections. And on a Saturday afternoon, I'd go to West where a lot of my mates played. I was sort of the chief sort of the sort of cheer squad, and that's where Sweno played West, and we became mates straight out of school. And that friendship's been enduring, lasted some 25 years, and we both took the sort of plunge to start the business together with the help of others like Steve Shoebridge and other people that worked with us at the time and have been pretty critical parts of the business in the earlier days. But Kurt and I have definitely it's been a strong relationship.
Yeah, it's great.
And so moving on from there, you guys have known each other, as you were saying, for 15 years. You've been doing business for the same amount of time?
For the last 10.
About 10 there as well.
About a decade.
I suppose, like you guys aren't, brothers in arms for the businesses that you are. You're not family per se, but 15 years you develop a bit of a rhythm as well, right?
Absolutely.
Tell us about your story. How you met.
So I remember when I first met Brendan, I went into Metro Property, which was David Devine. He was the head of residential, and I thought I had made it. Eagle Street office, level 20, looking out over the Story Bridge and the river. I knew of the projects and the pipeline that you guys had at that point in time, and I was just licking my lips with excitement. This was my first year in the industry.
How old were you exactly?
Yeah, exactly. I would have been 21, so very wet behind the ears. Yeah. Anyway, little did I know, I wasn't going in for a listing. I was going in for you to approach us to buy.
Well, firstly, Tim told me he was the most experienced guy at Resort Brokers when he sat down. So 21, he didn't tell me it was his first year.
And he says that next to Dad, too, which he enjoys.
He said he taught everyone what they know, but not everything he knows. And so he sat down with me and sort of started talking about the projects that Metro were doing, and I sort of said that I'd bought the most recent few that Metro were developing. And,
the colour just drained from his face?
I think that the excitement wasn't there exactly at that point, and then subsequently we sort of started speaking about other things that we could potentially buy. And then from that relationship there, obviously a couple of years later, we started, we'd bought them off the plan about 2011, 2012. We subsequently settled a couple of buildings on the same day. It was actually August 28, 2014 was the day we settled both the Plaza South Brisbane, which was behind schedule, and Cambridge Tower as part of Central Village. Yep. That was ahead of schedule. Same day, 2 buildings. And we settled those buildings, and that was sort of going back 2014. So that's
both on the same day?
Same day.
Just adding to the fun?
Same day, coincidentally, same day. So
that's irony right there.
And I'd resigned from Metro, and obviously we started Tessa in 2014. Kurt left ANZ Bank, and the group started. And from that we bought our first development site, and we thought things were easy back then. How long has this been going on for? But no, it's a long relationship and enduring like all.
And that is really starting in the deep end, because the number of lots, as standalone businesses, they're both good-sized buildings, and the idea of them simultaneously happening in different postcodes, different areas of Brisbane.
To give you some guidance there, though, like, how many lots are we talking here?
Both were, one was 142 and one was 161.
Cool. I'm selling one for 21 lots at the moment. There's a broad, we're talking about different levels of business here.
Exactly. And
same thing though. Same service.
It's the same game.
The fundamentals are the same.
100%. And that's where, we've had big, small buildings around over the years. So, 100%.
Over the journey, we've seen the industry become a lot more sophisticated as the size of the transactions have increased. I think in the second year we did Central Village.
Yes.
And last year we had an incredible year with you purchasing Jade, which we'll come back to. What have you changed in what you're looking for in a business over the last decade of us working together?
I think we've always traded a lot of assets. So we currently own 10 assets across Queensland, from Townsville to the Gold Coast. We've always traded a lot of assets over the years, where we bought, sort of leased them up and ran the buildings for a few years and then traded. I think we now understand as a business what we do.
Yes.
I think we have the capacity to buy assets that we really see as premium assets as well. But also, I think we run things that we get to a point that they probably are at a point where they are premium for other people to own as well. So we sort of build them up. I think that, mate, there's a couple of things, Tim, a couple of things that I've probably seen. Sophistication has definitely changed.
Yep.
But I sent you guys an email the other night, and it was a bit of a Jerry Maguire moment.
That was lovely.
And sort of you can share some of that in time if you want, or even on this. Your business, like our business, has been deeply changing over many, many years. The sophistication that you guys have, from how you present, what you do, how we interact, is so much different. And I think the articulation in that email was about how much we enjoy you guys as a group, but also it's been good to be able to watch your business change as ours has. But also, what's changed the industry, mate? I think sophistication. I think professionalism. We're a near $10 billion industry now, and people see it as a corporate enterprise that it should be seen as. And I think that's probably the biggest change.
It's well said.
And I think that's something you've always done really well, Tutty, is you've always been grassroots in regards to owning it, being very active in the committees, meeting, being that lead point of contact. How have you gone with scaling up and still having that attention to detail that, has been the backbone of Tessa?
Yeah, I think we are hands-on, and I think in this sort of business, you can't ever forget you're managing people's homes. We're a permanent management rights operator.
Yes.
We aren't a short-term operator. It's what we do as permanent space. Yes. People live there. That's where their families are, their children grow up, and all these things. So you've got to have that in the back of your mind always. And if we're not there present in managing it, firstly, these businesses can't have overlays of costs and different people involved. They just can't. And then secondly, you've got to be hands-on, because I think committees want to see people present. Yes. I think they want to see them involved. In saying that, we have some key staff within the business who take on those roles in some of our buildings as well. So it's just because you need to have that, because we can't, geographically can't be everywhere.
No.
But we're very active. Kurt and I are very active in owner-operators of this business.
Have you found committees in the last few assignments of buildings that you've bought that I think there was probably a bit of a stigma about what people would say big corporates.
Yep.
And because of your scale,
Yep.
you'd fall in that category. But actually, your sophistication experience would actually say and because you've got staff and a team, the service offering is great, right? Arguably as good, if not as you know,
Thanks, Trudy,
someone's
thank you.
first building would definitely. All our clients are great, and there's opportunity. But do you find that body corporate's mindset have changed in understanding?
It's a great question. I think you've got to have very good explanation as to what you do as a manager. I
Yes.
think people, the caretaking agreement is fairly well defined always. I don't think you can be chopping and changing how you deliver service. You set the expectations from day one.
Yes.
And you deliver on that.
Yes.
I think, that's a very important thing. I think as an industry, there probably needs to be more training for managers,
Yes.
more training for committees.
I agree, we
more
agree.
training for residents. But it's not just about saying, a committee should be, you have people who aren't maybe in some circumstances used to being facility management environments, which is what we are. We are a facility manager. We have a property management division of the business, obviously,
Yes.
but at core, some of these complexes are major facilities.
Yes.
We have one complex alone, 2,000 people live there. Over 2,000 people
wow.
live there. We've got facilities to manage. So I think sophistication's changed, but the biggest thing I think should happen, and maybe a change in the industry, is the level of training both on
I
the
agree
manager
with that.
and on the committees.
But for everybody, the whole ecosystem needs to understand how we coexist together better. And I think that sophistication, that's just some of the stuff that needs to catch up along the way, I think.
We've sold $40 million worth of deals.
Yep.
You've got $40 million worth of management rights currently and growing. That you were saying that definition of roles and responsibilities within your team and us as resort brokers.
Yep.
I think that's got to, as you say, got to flow into the ecosystem. Clear delineations of what we are responsible in each of our roles.
And leaders of this space, I think we have a responsibility to do that as well, because if we're not going to do it, who is? Right? So I think it's thing. And I picked up on something that you said there, Brendan, that I think is important to reiterate. When you were explaining the way your business works, it was the people that you're servicing first. Economics are important, but that people side was the first thing that you said, and I applaud you for that, because that's kind of where this industry really has its roots.
Yeah, as a business, everyone says their service is the best and all these things. And look, we have a contractual arrangement with a body corporate to provide a service that we must do. It's not, it's not a friendly competition, and that's what I think people need to understand. And the interactions between an operator and a committee is not about everyone being best mates.
No.
It's about obviously us delivering a service to a body corporate that we are paid to do,
Yes.
contractually obliged to do.
Yes.
And I think it's interesting. And I was just thinking something else. As our business has matured, I've watched your business mature,
Yes.
but also the management rights and the interactions has matured as well in the last 10, 15 odd years.
Absolutely.
I've seen, you've noticed it a lot, and the quality of people on committees now, I think, is very, very strong. And they're, I think education for them, education for us is probably a big thing.
I think that's such a big thing that we're seeing now, because back to my question earlier, right? That idea that the big corporates weren't
Yep.
going to get the services. I was living on site and, looking after the building. I think that operators like you have proven that actually you absolutely can. But I think probably too, through doing that, have you found that you have when I say educated, but really changed the perception of some people on body corporates about what the agreement is? I mean, their expectations, they thought that they call you 24/7 and
The concierge style versus
I think-
Well, just not
caretaker
understanding
style.
it's 9 to 5, right?
Yeah.
Just because you're living there doesn't mean you can knock
I
off
think
the
we've had
door.
mixed results in our education attempts on those things, but also that's lack of just understanding, maybe.
Exactly
So,
the
so I think
model,
look, it's I think you can never sort of say you're going to really iron that out, perhaps. But
No, I agree with
I think
training that.
it's understanding the agreements which are written sometimes a long time before they actually come into effect, and people maybe don't have the knowledge of how facilities operate, and that's what we are there to do, is be an operator of a facility.
Yeah.
What moving away from the committee piece? No, because I think we covered that
Get
really well.
on the fun stuff. Yeah.
Well, no, I'm thinking,
Yeah.
what are the challenges you're seeing in your complexes now? What have you seen? Maybe challenges through COVID or post-COVID? What are some common day issues
And
as
where's
of
the
today?
opportunity too, do you reckon?
Well, I think, look, challenges, I think, for everyone, and it's not, everyone always sits there, the first thing they say, staff. It's not staff, it's, our business, like any other business, whether you run restaurants or whether you run anything, you've got to maintain staff and keep staff, and staff will turn over. So understanding that as part of your business is a big thing. So your business is no different to ours.
Exactly.
There's constant change. I think what we need to do is sort of we don't layer up staff because these businesses aren't about having all extra people within the business. It's about, I think, making sure that we have a very clear approach to how we handle everything, from the committee interaction, from our staff interaction, from how our service standards are, how we manage things. Keeping that consistent in our business across every venue is probably our critical thing, our biggest challenge. Keeping consistent levels across.
Particularly when you start to scale, right?
Well,
Like
we're in
it's
Townsville,
systemised.
where right now, as of today, we're dealing with different issues in Townsville and the North
course.
Queensland market, where we don't deal with that in Brisbane as much. And so, we're dealing with different things on security, for example, or different things that you might have that you need to deal with. And so, I think from our point of view, every asset's got a challenge, but as a whole, we try and maintain some sort of service level that we offer.
And we're talking about how those different locations and those different demographics are seeking different services.
Yes.
So also really understanding your client base.
Definitely, and we have buildings where we have a lot of older people in our buildings, and I think you've seen a shift from when I started selling. My biggest sale that I ever did in my first year was $56,000.
I
tell you what, the commission was about $600, and back when I was a young real estate agent. And
You spent about $1,000 of that $600.
I got my
as well.
10-year-old Mitsubishi Lancer and drove around. I thought it was pretty flash. I think the suit was worth more than the car. The suit wasn't worth much. So it wasn't
Both highly flammable.
blue, white shirt, red was a rental, red tie. I looked like Donald Trump. I looked like Donald Trump. It was really, really good. And so, but I think it's just sort of, things have changed a lot. But I think back now to what we used to do back in the business, back then as a young real estate agent to now, we just try and keep some consistency and always keep learning and changing.
Is that how, the operational and the hard and fast areas of the business you guys have got locked down because you've been doing it and you've been refining it along the way? How do you address some of the softer side? How do you help build communities in the?
They don't put me in for that. They don't roll me in for the softer side. No. So it's interesting, isn't it? Like the softer side of stuff is quite interesting to talk about. And Tim and I I was laughing the other night. I was talking to Tim about something or other, and I said, back when we started doing business, it wasn't like it is now.
Yeah.
And I won't say adversarial, but we sort of had it was two guys who was younger. He's a bit younger than me still, but younger.
I think he's saying he was getting softer.
No. So
I think
Is that what you're struggling?
I imagine I'll edit that. So I'll get back to what it was. I think looking at how we've changed our relationship, mate. I think it's a much softer relationship. And I think from our point of view, in us dealing together, we're in sync. And I think the softer side of things is probably still not my strongest point.
Passionate.
But I'm passionate. But I've definitely, as a business, we would definitely have changed how we interact with people. Less aggression, less sort of we're right. It's about trying to understand.
More mutual respect. I feel like of the success that we've enjoyed buying, selling, the transaction both ways.
Not knowing you're always right, knowing that actually there might be another way of doing it, another point of view.
I think you get older, you sort of, I think you understand what maybe how you acted many years ago wasn't the best way. Did you think it out? But I think not to ever not take accountability for your behaviour. You're sort of understanding yourself as a business person,
and that'll flow into the relationships that you've got with the communities of the people that are living in your complexes.
Well, that was the question originally, which I got lost on.
You're right.
It was the softness that we have there, and I look back at things that we've done in the past and how I'd handle them differently now at 43 as opposed to at 35, and it was maybe too hard. And I think we definitely interact differently with our committees.
Yes.
We definitely interact differently. And look, I think it's a mutual thing. So some, you still have those different unique relationships, I call them. I think, how we behave as a group here and how we behave out there is probably pretty consistent now, as opposed to being more. I think we're a bit too hard on some things.
It's funny how a little bit of wisdom comes to play with a couple of years under your belt.
Very, very little bit. Frank.
The softest part of you was your teeth when we first started working together.
That's very good.
But there was things that I look back and I think that I was closed off because it hadn't been done. I think you were one of the operators that pioneered internet there was already an income stream in the short-term management rights space and a recognised internet income stream, and transferring that into
the end user. So not only for the bottom line, it was great for lot owners.
Exactly.
And so on.
And it still is.
Yes.
We are finding that Gigafy is getting taken up by owner-occupiers. The uptake in buildings, retrofits. It doesn't matter if it's an investor or an owner, because the service, the ability for people that are downsizers to be able to turn it off for 2 months when they go to Europe, that flexibility, yet still having that same level of service.
I think we talked to David Wadley recently, and we made the claim that we were the first, and he sort of backs it up. He sort of backs it up.
That's good enough.
He probably backs up to 5 people. So David tells everyone they're the first.
Chalk it up.
But it was a big thing, and I give credit to him for what he created in that system, from what was a backpackers needed internet and how he created it to we were able to implement it into what is now a consistent part of your recurring income. And that's probably a big thing, is about how do you create recurring incomes.
Yes.
I think there's things on the horizon now that I've been sort of talking to people about, where 3 or 4 key things I think over the next 2 or 3 years will become...
Oh, will you tell us?
Yeah, no, not yet. But I think there are things that will be like the internet when we got onto that.
Yep.
Things that I think as the market changes and evolves, everyone will want.
Yeah.
And that we as operators should be able to provide those things, and they will become normal, consistent things within the businesses.
Tell me this, Tuddy, do you think that, like with some of your buildings being owner-occupiers or different age demographics, and to your point about what do they want, do you find that the end user is more demanding, or is it building specific, or, are you seeing that change
not just
their
a lot of-
expectations from a manager more or less?
I think, look, depending on the asset as well.
Okay,
I think
right.
asset specific, what the expectations are, but
Okay.
also what the expectations have been historically
Yes.
in an asset. So I think we have to be consistent.
Yep.
We can control what we can control. And we've got to come into a building and operate at a consistent level that we operate at, not come in and start changing everything to help one person. And one thing I think everyone's got to understand is that the chairman today may not be the chairman tomorrow, may not live in the building tomorrow.
Good advice.
So you get there and start changing things and doing things just to suit a personality of a person. That's probably a dangerous sport. I think that's a very dangerous sport. And we are very clear from the outset of how we operate.
Yes.
We don't go in there and sort of promise things we're going to do and not do.
Yeah.
We go in there and say, this is how we operate. And if the decision at that point was that we aren't the right fit, well, we all need to make a decision about whether we proceed and buy the asset.
Yes.
So
That's
I
really-
think
that's a really
it's
good
early
advice.
on, you've got to set those expectations.
And that's why you're building because you've gone in there and we call them clean. The relationships are good. Everyone understands what the expectations and the delivery is.
Exactly.
And I think probably the predecessor relationships probably got more value that you understand now.
And I think something Tuddy's done very well, and it's made, and it leans back into that foundation of the agreement, is, a lot of managers have schedules outside the caretaking and letting agreement, and the caretaking and letting agreement has the frequency. And, you refer to the agreements as the schedule. That is your Bible.
Well, we've done over 20 transactions, mate, $40 million in deals, Tim. I think... I've never provided you anything outside a caretaking agreement in my life, and nor will I, to have a separate schedule. Because there is a contractual schedule we all must abide. We have to abide by it. They have to abide by it as a committee in a building, and that sets the expectation for service that we buy on and costs out as a business. And that's what you must rely on.
Absolutely.
And that's what I say to people: is you must rely on that. Don't set 5 different schedules because. As I say, the chair may change tomorrow, the committee may change tomorrow. We've had buildings where I'm never leaving the building, and then the next month they're out.
They're gone.
They sold their unit because things happen in life.
Exactly. People pass, divorces,
Or mate, they
situation,
move.
or they move. Exactly. They want to change the scene. Just to, because I know I'm conscious of time, you've got many hats, obviously, as we mentioned. Maybe moving away from management rights and moving to the development cycle and development. Where do you see we are in the cycle? What do you think is going to reinvigorate the construction of new apartments? And, can you talk to that a little bit?
I won't sort of bore you with construction type commentary,
No,
but we aren't builders.
We can hear it outside. We're in Newstead.
Exactly. Mate, that's Cavalucci, we're in the sort of Cavalucci land here. I think from our point of view, there is a need for stock in the market.
Yes.
Large scale projects, I think, are increasingly difficult to obviously bring into the marketplace. What is the solution for that? Well, I think where we are right now, we just won't see a lot of large-scale residential apartment complexes in traditional markets where they're not multi-million-dollar apartments. It's just, it's too hard. You need to be able to sell things at 20 grand a metre. It's just a difficult thing to do. So I think where we sit right now, the market for the next few years will be very similar to what it is today.
Yeah, and I think this owner-occupied stock is not necessarily fixing the housing crisis that we have. You know, there needs. I'm glad to see.
I'm going to be honest. I don't understand. I know you two. You know,
Live
talk
and breathe
development
it.
all the time, but I don't understand why, with prices going up, it would be harder to get up a big project. Like, I would have thought there's so much money, people have to pay big money for units. Do you reckon that small-scale developments are easier to get up? When you say small, none are small, but big.
No, definitely. Well, two questions, and that one there is about whether large-scale projects get up, but also affordability. I've never heard anyone say a $5 million apartment helps affordability crisis.
No.
So I mean, I think that's
not what the market needs.
Well, it probably needs it, but just not going to solve the affordability crisis.
Yeah, right.
And on large scale projects, I just think there's the construction metrics. You know, it costs you $700-800 grand to build a unit now. Where I remember at Galway Street, Windsor, in 2014, we signed a contract with Hutchies to build, 80 square metre internal, 20 metre balcony units for $206,000.
Wow.
206. So in 10 years, that same unit now would cost us $700 grand to build. So that's three times the amount. So it's interesting to see.
Yeah,
What
it's
do you
an
think's going
interesting
to happen?
place.
Do you reckon people will move further out where the land's cheaper? Do you think there'll just be because in my mind it's like, well, if no one builds it anymore, prices are just going to continue to rise, and that will kick the feasibilities back off. But then I can't see that happening if people's salaries aren't jumping.
Well, you look at the stuff we used to do around Newstead, where we are today. We were out there, when I worked with David and Kem, we were doing, 500 apartments at one bedders from 300 grand, and that wasn't that long ago. Probably 15 years ago.
Moved through pretty quickly.
There's a while
We
ago.
might have to get you back in, Tuddy, to talk about the development
I would
and
love
what you
that.
see it,
Yeah.
because I think that's a completely different
story.
conversation.
But also,
we can
probably,
jump
probably
into.
better people than me to have in on that one too. So,
We might get you on. It could be some
And I
sort of
wanna know-
developer celebrity
mate, I think
deathmatch,
that'd be
maybe. Yeah.
I get Hutchie or someone.
Yeah,
Can I ask
exactly.
you one final question? So you went to Townsville, obviously, being one of the big Brisbane operators.
Yep.
What made you go to Townsville, and what would you say to people who are looking to maybe consider regional assets?
Well, I think that's one of our great performing assets.
Yes.
And I think that Townsville market for us has been a fantastic market. We had the opportunity, I think with you guys, were looking at the Blue Sky portfolio.
Yeah, that was us,
and
yeah.
so went to Townsville to look at that, and we realised that we weren't short-term operators pretty quick. I think I said to Kurt, look, we're going to go to Townsville. He said, before he could say no, I said, I've already bought the tickets. So I'll pick you up at Sunday.
You're not a Cowboys fan?
I think he was about to say no. And look, at the time, probably very smart to say no. We
it
went
was
there.
wild at the time, right?
And at the time, also, Trudy, I called good friends of mine, Paul Gideon and Chris Vitale from Point Corp, and I said, while I'm in Townsville, can I look at your asset you own? So we looked at 6 of Blue Skies, didn't buy any of them. I came back, we spoke to Chris and Paul, and we ended up buying Springbank Open Village with the help of Resort Brokers at that point, because I think you were about to sell it. And we ended up buying that, and it's been a great asset, long-term staff. We had a staff member there now for 7 years. Great performing asset, but also we've started to understand the regional market. That's a sort of $750,000 net income business, which is a pretty big regional business.
Yeah, that is.
And when you were buying it, and we were comparing apples with apples where the market was in Brisbane, what you were buying and selling, it represented such incredible value, right?
Yeah, correct. And 4 times, even now they're still 5.5 on 6
5.5.
times.
Yeah.
It's where they sit. That was 4 times on a 400 grand multiplier. So it's really, we've got in there as an operator and changed a few things, but rents have gone through the roof in the regions as well.
Of course they have.
CPI for us all over the last few years has been great.
been
So,
great,
not great. Cost of wages have gone up as well. So all those things balanced, but values have been maintained.
That's probably a good spot for us to wrap it up there. Tuddy, we are, as speaking from Resort Brokers, very thankful and humbled with the relationship that we have with Resort Brokers and Tessa. So thank you very much for joining us on Resort Brokers Radio. We're going to get you back and talk about all the other stuff that we didn't get to today. Thank you, Tim, for joining us and helping us explain through the relationship. But once again, thanks for very, very much for joining us.
Legend,
Really
Tubby.
appreciate it, guys. Kurt and I
Cheers.
thank you for your support. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks, guys. Thanks,
Cheers,
guys.
guys. Thank you for joining us at RB Radio.
If you enjoyed the insights from this episode, we'd love your support with a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
Stay connected with us on all social media platforms at Resort Brokers. We're excited to continue this journey with you and see you in the next episode.
See you then.